it's back. The Fiat 500 is back. So let's have a look. It's been sat over at the repair centre for quite a while, so as you can imagine it's absolutely filthy. All the chassis work's been done. I've even blown in a bit of paint over here just to kind of like marry it all back up. We need to put all the retaining pins in. He has left the bumper loose so I can put the headlight back in there. So I think the first thing that this car desperately now needs is a clean, so let's get that done, and then as soon as I've done the outside I'm definitely tackling that interior because it is a mess. So cue the time lapse.
You know I'll always keep on coming back to you. Even when the road gets tough, you're enough. I don't know how I deserve you. You know I'll always keep on coming back to you. Back to you. Back to you.
Okay, I've got to show you this bit. So what I've just sprayed on is a fallout remover which reacts with any iron particles. Like if you have a brake disc, sorry, a brake pad that like kicks out tons of dust, this is the sort of stuff that gets stuck to the bodywork. And also if it's been at a body shop, it's with welding and stuff like that, you're going to get little bits of iron filings from the welds. Look how much fallout is on this car. I mean, it was bad down here when I bought it because the previous owner clearly didn't look after it or clean it at all, but it is covered. I mean, both sides are the same, so absolutely covered in fallout. Let's let that sit for another minute and then I'll pressure wash it off.
You know I'll always keep on coming back to you. When the road gets tough, you're enough. I don't know how I deserve you. You know I'll always keep on coming back to you. Back to you.
Right, so that's it all washed down, and I mean washed, not valeted. We're going to give this a proper clean, potentially a detail once it's all finished. So let's have a recap of what's left to do. This part of the bodywork here is actually going to go to my painters because they've got a paintless dent guy who is like a magician and will get that dent out, and also one on the passenger door. He'll also pull this out so it's the right angle, and then they will respray that. Bumper, this is going to be repaired, and I'll probably have the whole bumper sprayed. The tailgate release button is not working, however it does work from the key. So there is a common fault where the wiring up here, when you open the boot, actually dries out. So we don't actually need to replace the wiring on this. It's just literally this boot release. So what I might do is take this off and see if it's something that I can fix rather than replacing the whole thing, because this tailgate handle is actually in really nice condition, and here you'll see all the paint that's inside the 500 is still in good condition, and they tend to pit and fade. You may have noticed I've not spent much time cleaning the windscreen or trying to get that glue off. That's because we have a nice big crack, so the windscreen needs to be replaced. Next job will be, let's get it watertight. I've got to check the cabling down here, so I'm going to pop the bumper off, get that headlight in, although the headlight does need correcting, but let's just get that hole filled so it looks a bit better, and then we'll move on to the interior. So all I'll do, pop the bumper off, pop that headlight in, bolt it into place, put the bolts on the top of the bumper, and then we'll disconnect the battery and start on the interior. Let's get on to that now. Okay, so that's the headlight fitted. This wasn't working, it was just because it wasn't plugged in. As you can see, our donor headlight from our front end replacement is quite dull and faded, and the other one, based on the age, looks nice and fresh. So what we're going to do, won't do it today, I'm going to wet sand this down, get it polished up, and that should bring that up back quite nicely. If I'm not overly happy with it, then I'll probably swap this out with another unit. I've just spent about half an hour fiddling around with the bonnet alignment, trying to get it as good as possible, and I'm really happy now that it's pretty much bang on both sides. There's a couple of little bits I need to do. There's a little bit of chip here where the actual original accident happened. I think all I'm going to do is just touch that in, because it seems ridiculous to replace the wing with the spare one over there, when all we can do is just touch that in with a little bit of paint. And I say also we've got to replace the windscreen, so if any of this edge gets marked or anything at the same time, I can do that as well. So it's now 5 o'clock, I've got about an hour. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to whip the battery off, and then I'm going to disconnect the seats, pull those out, and let's clear all this out ready for tomorrow and have a look and see what we can do with the interior. But I think the first thing to do is clear out all the spare bolts and bits and pieces that are in there, so we can actually properly see what we're left with. Right, so I've just taken all of the rubbish out, taken the mats out as well, and just look how grimy this interior is. I mean, there's so that's 20p I've made now, starting to claw back the pennies. So oh, and another 1p piece down there. I do wonder how much my Hoover actually makes in a year just by sucking up pound coins and things from the interiors of cars. But right, let's get all this grime hoovered out and see what we're left with. I mean, honestly, that is disgusting. How would you put a cup in there? You go and do a Mackey's run, dump it in that, you may as well drink it from the bin. Right, let's crack on. Right, so that's just a Hoover. I was going to take these seats out, but actually when you move them forwards, I'll show you, you actually get quite a lot of access to underneath. So I think I'm going to leave the seats in tackle it with a wet vac. Next thing I'm going to do, try and clean off some of this grime on here and this discoloration on here. Get some all-purpose cleaner on that, and also scrub the door cards. So I'm not going to film that bit because it's, well, monotonous and boring. I'll cut back in a second when I've done it and you can see. So this is before. You can see like the makeup on the stalk, the steering wheel, like all the dirt around the dash. I'll probably even give the seats a quick wipe down as well. Let's do that now. Right, so that's all the interior wiped down. Managed to get most of the marks off. It probably needs another quick wipe again, but I mean, it is going to go off for some more work to be done on it, so I expect it to get a bit dusty and dirty in here again when it goes to the paint shop. As you can see, all the kind of fake leather or vinyl, whatever it is, has cleaned up really nicely. All the dirt that came out of it in the cloth was pretty disgusting. I've cleaned down all the plastics, kind of wiped down all these different areas. There's little bits that are still drying, so that will show up dust. And then tomorrow, because it's the end of the day now, I will get the wet vac onto the fabric of the seats and get these all cleaned up, and then it will make it look nice and fresh. So other thing that we'll cut to tomorrow, which will literally be in a minute or so, is we will get the wheels swapped out. Now if anybody is a follower of us on Instagram, you will know that I've had the wheels for this for a couple of months now, and they are just dying to go on, or I'm dying to get them on the car so we can get the space saver back in the boot. One of the tyres around here has got a flat, that one there, and I say literally just because it's been sat for so long, the battery's completely dead, so I need to pull that out. I'm going to do that in a minute. I'll leave it on charge overnight, get a good charge back into that, make sure there's no issues with it, and then we are good to go with moving this around in the future. So see you in a minute on the next day. Okay, so I'm trying to tackle one of the issues that we've got on the car, which is the boot release wasn't working. Ooh, try not to damage it. So I stripped it all down, taken this plastic housing out of the outer casing. It's just basically some clips. You just got to prise it apart. So if I show you these little retainers here and here all the way along, just prise them apart, try not to break the chrome surround, and that basically then released the centre section from it. And literally I've put a multimeter on the connector, and then I pulled the phone back here and pulled the little micro switch out of there, tested it, and it's working fine. It was a really simple fix in the end. Literally these little hinge pins here and here had just slid out. You can see there's like a groove there. They just slid all the way out of position, so every time you pulled the handle, which is that bit there, it had no resistance on the spring. So literally just tested it, it works all fine. So I'm going to get all this back together. I'll just quickly show you how you actually get this out of the boot. And so on the boot you've got retaining clips here, there's a bolt there for the grab handle to pull the boot down. So you literally just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 retaining clips and 1 bolt. So a little bit excessive. And then you just pull that bit down. Under here is where it all sits. So you've got 4 bolts underneath. Sorry, 4 bolts on the actual bottom of the handle, and they just fit with a little 10mm there, and then just literally pop it out from the top and it comes straight away. So I'm going to clean up that little area there, put it all back together, and we'll test it out. There we go, so that's all the boot reassembled. So there's that little pull there with the I think it's a size 5 Allen key on it, and then all the poppers are back in place. These 2 poppers here and here are actually slightly smaller threads, so best way of doing it when I take any stuff like this out, as I take out each of the poppers, I lay them out on the carpet in the same pattern that I've removed them, so they all go back in the same spot. So now works absolutely fine. So that was a nice free fix, or I should say almost free fix. I put a bit of tape over the back of the foam where I had to cut it just so that it's watertight again, and then when it bonds back onto the bodywork, there's no chance of any water kind of ingressing and getting into the electrics. Right, let's get on to the next task, and you might have seen them, you might not, but if you follow us on Instagram, you'll see I posted these about 2 months ago when I found them online. So these were off a category B breaker car, for sale on Facebook Marketplace, if I remember correctly. So these are the sport wheels, which I really like because they've got this kind of like matte finish with a diamond cut face on there. I bought the full set with the good tyres. Well, I thought they were good tyres. I've subsequently found out this one's got a slight leak in it, so we'll get that one changed, but all the tyres have got really good tread on them. They were £230 for all four, including the tyres, which I thought was a really good price. It took me about an hour and a half to go and get them from sort of, I don't know, somewhere near London, if I remember correctly. So yeah, so I've had all those refurbed now, and I get a trade rate when I get my wheels refurbed, so it would cost me £300 to have a full refurb, so that's the original finish. And then on the inside you can see they're all nice and fresh, and they've all been rebalanced, so these are almost like brand new now. And I say it's just that one tyre that has a slight deformity on it here. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's what's going down. So we're going to put them on the car now. I know that's going to have to be changed, but ultimately that'll be done tomorrow, so it should last overnight before it goes flat again. And yeah, let's see what these look like on the car. And there we go. I think they look so much better. They're not standard lounge wheels. It kind of sets this car out different from others. I mean, we can just do the quick comparison. So we've got both the wheels on this side. Come around here. Oh, boring. Anyway, I'll get the other two fitted. Probably don't need to do that on camera. Pretty much the same sort of thing as I've just done. You will notice I wire walled down where the hub center was, just so that there was no rust build up on there, so the wheels come on and off nice and easily. And I say then I put a bit of copper grease on there just so they go on nice and smooth. Right, get the other side done, and then we'll have a look at it. There we go, so that's all four wheels on now, and actually I'm really happy with that. I was a bit of a punt as to whether they would look right without the sport back bumper and front bumper, but I think they work quite well with the car. There's only some slight variations with the other bumpers from the sport model, but it just stands out now. It looks that much better, and because they're genuine Fiat wheels, I've not gone for something aftermarket, anything too leery, and I think it will, you know, just add value when we come to sell it. Still got to do the seats, haven't had a chance to run the wet vac over those, so I'm going to probably do that tomorrow, which will be Saturday. I've lost a day this week because work has just been absolutely mental, but everything is now coming together. And the next step is I'm going to go and get the suspension parts tomorrow, so that little boot cover, and then I'm going to get that fitted, which will then allow me to fit the replacement wheel arch for this side, because when the bumper got hit it kind of yanked it across and ripped off this bottom section, and it's actually cracked the inside of the wheel arch liner, you can see there. So overall, I'm really happy. I still need to play around with the alignment. The bumper for some reason won't tuck in really tight against here, and if you can see in there, it is actually quite under a lot of strain. It's not fully held into the clip, so I'm going to pop this off, do some adjustments on it, and just get it to kind of lift up a little bit more, get back into that kind of nice finished position there. So I'll have a play around with that, because obviously this is the side that had no structural damage on it. On this side, the bracket is slightly bent at the back here, which is why there's slightly more progressive gap, and I've actually clamped it up tighter at that end as well, which I'm kind of okay with. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I don't really like it, so I'll probably lose sleep over that, and I will find a way to make it perfect. But other than that, considering where it's come from to where it is now, I'm really happy. So next job that I can do is to give this headlight a nice wet sand, get that polished. So tomorrow's job, which will be in like a couple of seconds time as far as you're concerned, will be to get that headlight all polished up. So we'll get a wet sand on there, do a nice sort of 600 grit, get that really finished down, get the two looking the same, and then change out that suspension bit, put the wheel arch liner in, and then we're off to paint. And then that should be one of the last two steps before the car's finished, because the last step after all the paintwork's done is we'll get this windscreen replaced to get rid of that nasty crack that's running across it. So catch back with you in a second, and we'll move on to the suspension and the headlight. Look what I just found. It was underneath the steering wheel, sort of where the driver's legs sit, and I could see this random inline fuse and wire and an earth, and I'm thinking, what the hell's that? And the battery keeps running low, and I'm thinking, it's not being used, there's nothing on. And this little box is lit up like a Christmas tree underneath the dash. So an old insurance box with regards to tracking, I'm guessing, how the car is being driven. Don't need that anymore, so I'm going to bin. Okay, so the next thing we're going to tackle is this headlight. If you look at the one on the original, it's a lot clearer, and our donor headlight, it's a bit pitted and a bit faded. So we're going to start off by masking off the edge around here, and then we're going to give this a couple of hits of wet sand. So we'll start off probably with something like a 1200 grit, see if that gets out most of it, and then we'll work our way back to a 1500, 2000, and then a 3000 grit, and then we'll try polishing it. So let's see if we can improve the look of this. I don't think it will come up as good as the one here, but let's try it, see what happens. Okay, so what we've done there is obviously started off with a coarser sandpaper and then refined ourselves back to something finer. What I was doing was making sure that when I'd sanded it, all the areas have been equally sanded as well. So there was still a clear section down here, so I just went through the process again, 1200 grit, 1500, 2000 and then 3000, and now let's try doing a bit of a polish on it and see what happens. So what I did there, using a tool called an hybrid from Rups, that's got a coarse compound pad on there, and I was using a heavy cut compound. That's taken out most of the sanding marks on there. What I'm going to do now is swap the pad out for a softer compound, so a finishing pad, and then we'll go over there with a finishing polish just to add a bit more gloss, because if we put a light on this we would probably still see some defects, and I don't want those defects to be apparent when the light's on and it's shining through from behind the actual lens. So swap this out for a finishing pad, and then crack on and see what finish we can get out of this. But it's even now looking 100 times better than it did. There we go. All corrected up. And now they pretty much match. So that's our original. And that's the one I've just polished. So happy with that. So that brings us to the end of another episode. I'm really pleased that the Fiat's back and we're able to actually get on with this build. There's been lots of things I've been wanting to do with this for such a long time, and we're now finally getting there. We're so close to having this car complete. I want to say a huge thank you to Sam from SLR Rebuilt. He mentioned us in his last vlog that he uploaded. If you've not seen his channel, I've tagged the information in the description. And if you've come across from Sam's to our channel, welcome, and thank you very much for subscribing and watching our videos. If you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and if you like what you're seeing, please hit that thumbs up. So massive improvement. Can't be more happy with how we've got on with our first ever build, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.